Boring, boring, boring. Olivia swiped her thumb over the screen again and again and again. She was so bored here in this house. No one had time for her. There wasn't even much to clean up. The sun had already set outside. None of her games were arousing her interest either. And now that she was in her pajamas, going out would be even more of a hassle. She wanted something to do, something to watch. And yet, all the videos on screen just looked boring. One after the other. Gaming content? Nah. A video about politics? Hell no. Some beauty product presentation that would feel more like an ad instead of a normal review? A sigh escaped her as she clicked on the next video to quickly get away from that one. She pulled up her feet and leaned back until she touched the wall. How come nothing here seemed worthwhile to watch? The whole internet was at her fingertips, yet she felt exhausted simply looking for something to waste time with. Olivia let out a loud sigh, pulled her knees in, and started clicking faster. There had to be something out there, right? Even though she couldn't say what would hold her interest right now, she knew she would recognize it the moment she saw it. Or at least that was what she told herself. If worst came to worst, she'd sit here all night, scrolling and clicking through videos. Maybe she could do something more productive. Olivia looked up for a moment. There were some shirts and blouses strewn across the floor of her room. Her desk looked a mess. She had wanted to hang up that one picture still leaning against the wall on the other side, one of these days. The thought alone made her angry. She didn't want to do something productive. She wanted to relax and spend the evening in bed, lounging around. Mum and Dad would be back by Tuesday. So she still had 3 more days to clean up the whole house. And this time, she would do it, Olivia promised herself again. But not right now. Not tonight. She let herself sink back, then clicked on another video. Then one more. The light above her flickered for a moment. The screen of her phone seemed to freeze up. And now, besides the sigh, a groan came out of her mouth. This couldn't be happening, Olivia thought as she held up her phone. No, if this thing just died, she'd be trapped in this house without a phone. She shook it and swiped the whole screen with her hand, but the picture didn't move. Olivia cursed in her mind, jumped out of bed and landed on the carpet. The phone still showed the same frozen video as before. She shook it, and suddenly the screen turned black. No! Olivia almost screamed as she started pacing through the room. This couldn't be happening. Not right now. She shook it again, hoping against hope that it somehow would come back to life. What if it was broken? What could she do? It wasn't like she had a car and it was the weekend right now. She would need to somehow get into the city to find anyone who could repair a broken phone. And for that, she would need to either take the bus or call a taxi or something. Olivia froze. How could she call anyone or anything without a phone? A loud, angry groan escaped her. She shook the phone again, then almost screamed as the screen suddenly turned bright white and a video appeared. Olivia could feel her heart beating in her head. It wasn't broken. She wouldn't be trapped here with nothing to do after all. A smile appeared on her lips as she looked at the video more closely. It was of a strange man sitting on a sofa, staring into the camera. Olivia felt a chill as she looked at it, then noticed the red dot in the corner of the screen. A live stream? How had she come here? Was it from wiping the screen in her panic? Whatever the case, the video was obviously playing, and it wasn't even lagging or glitching out. Her phone was safe, as was her entertainment. She let out another sigh, lowered the phone, and hovered her finger over the screen again, as suddenly a voice came out of the speakers.
It looks like we have a new viewer, everyone.
The man was still staring at the camera with this almost unnerving expression on his face. The whole scene seemed surreal. There was no microphone visible anywhere, yet his voice sounded far too clear, and the way he was sitting there on the couch made it look like he was ready to jump up any time. Somehow he was giving her the creeps. This guy seemed far too strange to be real, Olivia thought. He was wearing a suit and tie, both of them black with a red shirt. His hair was long, dark, and slicked back, and the skin of his face seemed almost too pale to be healthy. Was he living in some kind of dark basement? Olivia could feel her curiosity peaking now. There weren't many people watching, she noticed. The guy seemed happy that she had joined as well. Maybe this would cure her of her boredom, at least for a bit. What's the harm? Olivia mumbled to herself, and the next moment she could see the man's lips turning into a smile as well.
Exactly.
He almost seemed to praise her.
What's the harm in staying a bit longer?
She felt a chill, looked at the screen, and then furrowed her brow. Had he just answered her? How? There was no way some random watcher would be able to talk directly into the stream. That feature definitely would be abused to hell and back.
We're so glad you joined us tonight.
The man spoke again, his smile not wavering in the least, as he rose up from the couch and the camera panned up with him. He turned around for a moment, grabbed something from behind his back, then held it up for her to see. A cane. One of those gaudy ones with a silver animal's head on one end. It was formed like a wolf baring its fangs. Olivia furrowed her brow as she saw it, and suddenly the man's smile disappeared.
You don't like my style?
He asked, looking hurt, then took the cane and tapped the floor twice. What was going on here? Could he see her? That was even more impossible, right? Olivia didn't answer, but kept looking at the screen. Maybe he was talking to someone else right now? She waited for him to speak again, but the man simply kept staring into the camera while he rested both arms on the gaudy cane. Seconds passed, and Olivia started to think about simply closing the app and doing something different. The shock from before was still fresh on her mind. Maybe starting to clean up wouldn't be the worst kind of idea right now. At least she wouldn't have to look at some creep then. She raised her hand, then stopped as the voice came from the speakers again.
Don't worry about it. No one has to like my style, but I'm sure we're all just happy to have you with us. You see, it gets kind of boring after a time, and I'm sure we're all ready for a new adventure, right?
Olivia looked at her phone and could see some people writing in the chat. The messages were overwhelmingly positive, and she felt put on the spot. She could see the smile on the man's face appearing again, his eyes almost glowing. He stepped to the side, tapped the tip of his cane against the floor twice again, and the chat died down. Olivia froze and almost lost her phone as she stared at the screen, and now could see something behind the man. On the couch he was standing in front of, someone was lying. A dead person. A woman, to be exact. She could see it and noticed it immediately. The cold, dead eyes staring out into nothingness, and the limp body, almost draped over the sofa, posed like a puppet. A black eye, bruises, cuts, and burn marks along the arms. The red and purple ring around her neck made it clear that she had been strangled to death. What had she stumbled upon? This was definitely not allowed on this platform. Was it a prank? As if he could hear her thoughts, the strange man turned, then lifted up the dead woman's arm and let it fall back down. There was no sign of life in her, but the way her body moved made Olivia doubt that it was nothing more than a puppet. It looked real. She could feel this shiver crawling up her spine as she watched a man press the tip of his cane against her cheek.
You know this is real, right?
He asked, without turning back to the camera. His voice sounded so cold that she could feel a shiver crawling through her body. Olivia nodded in response and suddenly saw the strange man whirl around, his eyes glowing from sheer joy. There was this almost eerie silence filling the air. Something was happening. Olivia knew. She could feel it. This sensation of the floor beneath her feet trembling as the man stared at her through the screen of the phone was unnerving. His smile was getting wider and wider. A voice inside her head warned her to drop her phone, to throw it away, but she couldn't. Her body was completely frozen.
Then it's settled,
He exclaimed, his voice full of joy. But now there was this cold tone hidden beneath that Olivia absolutely hated. This had gone on long enough, she thought to herself. She swiped her finger over the screen, but the live stream kept playing just as before.
So our next friend is going to be Olivia. Give her a hand, chat.
The voice thundered from the speakers, and for a moment she thought she had an out-of-body experience. Had he really called her by her name just now? How? Why? She looked down and could see him smiling while the chat almost exploded. Messages appeared on the screen directly. Get her. Kill her. Make her pay. Olivia felt herself trembling from head to toe. The violent messages disappeared and were suddenly replaced by 2 words sent almost simultaneously from all the watching accounts. Ding dong. She could feel her hand shaking as suddenly the man on the screen disappeared and the sound of the doorbell made her scream. The phone dropped from her hand as she whirled around and ran out of her bedroom. Mum and Dad were back, she told herself. They were here to save her. Olivia almost jumped down the stairs, then ran toward the entrance. Some part of her still warned her to be cautious. The timing was so strange. But in her panic, she couldn't think straight. Sliding around the corner, Olivia came to a stop right by the front door, looked out through the small window next to the frame, then froze again. No one was there. The porch was completely empty. And yet, something inside the house felt different. She couldn't explain it, not even to herself, but Olivia felt this clammy sensation in her chest. Ding dong, they had said, just before the doorbell rang. Was that some kind of inside joke? She pressed her face against the window next to the door and looked out into the night. There was no sign of anyone running away or waiting by the bushes. No cars or bikes or anything like that in the driveway. The timing was off. That part of herself reminded her again. Olivia looked down and furrowed her brow as she finally found something unexpected. There, directly in front of the door, were shoe prints. 2 of them were made of what looked like dress shoes. Their tips were pointing right at the entrance. Was that dirt or water? Olivia couldn't tell for sure, but what she noticed was that there were no other kinds of traces beside them. No stains or splashes, just those 2 shoe prints. Olivia hugged herself as a shiver ran through her. Maybe she should call her parents? Not to beg them to return, no. Just to hear Mum's voice for a moment. It would help her, she knew. Reluctantly, Olivia stepped away from the small window and walked back up to her room, where she had dropped her phone. She had never thought she'd feel like this, alone in this house, but right now, she really wanted her parents back. If it persisted, she would need to call the police. Olivia almost snuck into her room, now hyper-aware of all the noises going on around her. The house sounded pretty much like it always did, she thought. But still, it didn't feel right. Its silence felt oppressive, much more than ever before. It was just wrong. Olivia could feel her heart beating so clearly now. Maybe she should call someone over? Anyone? Being alone here right now was giving her the creeps. Then again, what if dropping her phone now had finished it off completely? She honestly didn't think she would mind as much as before. At least she wouldn't have to look at that strange livestream again. Olivia's feet crossed the threshold of her room, and immediately she spotted the phone lying on the floor. With the screen facing up, she could see the livestream still running, but now it looked different. She ran those last 2 steps, pulled the phone up, and stared at it in disbelief. The man was still the same, sitting on a couch with his cane next to him, smiling at the camera. But the set had changed. Olivia felt her heart racing out of control. This wasn't a joke, right? She knew the room he was sitting in. The sofa, the chairs, the pictures on the walls. Even her dad's old trophies. It wasn't some random room, but right beneath her feet. Her parents' living room. This couldn't be. She felt dizzy, almost stumbled, then caught herself at the wall.
Welcome back, Olivia.
That smarmy voice came from the speakers.
How nice of you to join us again. I've been waiting for you to return so we can start the stream in earnest.
She was shaking her head. This couldn't be real. It was a nightmare. How was this man in this house? The door was locked. She had checked it. How would he even know who she was? It wasn't like her real name was linked to her username, right? And her address.
You still seem a bit reluctant to believe me, Olivia.
The man said directly to her, and she could feel her legs trembling. The man on screen raised one finger as if to stop her from answering, then reached to his side and took the cane into his hand. Olivia couldn't look away. She felt it deep inside. This situation was dangerous. Someone or something had invaded her home. She wanted to scream, but before the shout could leave her mouth, the man brought the cane down onto the floor, and the bang that followed couldn't just be heard through the speakers, but out here in real life as well. The sound seemed to echo around her as she trembled and almost fell to her knees. How? Why? Those questions popped into her mind again, but they weren't what was important right now.
We're going to play a game now, Olivia. You and I. And the guys watching will be the judge. It's easy. You hide, and I come looking for you. If you try to call for help or leave the house, I will take that as a forfeit. I think you can guess what will happen then.
Olivia felt sick and dizzy. What was he talking about? Her mind was still reeling, but the man continued on.
I'll give you 1 minute to choose a hiding spot. Better hurry, because I am very good at finding people.
With that, the man in the video put down the cane, then raised both his hands and theatrically covered his eyes. Olivia tried to close the stream, but no matter how hard or where she touched the screen, the window wouldn't disappear. She could feel her heart beating so hard it hurt her ribs. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. Olivia shut off the volume of her phone, then looked around. She couldn't call the police for help with her screen locked like this. Should she run? What if he really was here? He would kill her if she did, right?
You better hurry, little girl.
A voice echoed up from the floor below, and Olivia finally had to face reality. He was here. This wasn't some prank. She could worry about the how and the why later. Tears shot into her eyes as she pushed herself off the wall, then took 2 stumbling steps into the middle of the room. She couldn't run, not like this. Her legs were almost completely useless, but she still needed to hide. If her legs were working, she could choose the attic or maybe the basement, but that simply wasn't possible right now. How much time did she have left? She didn't know. All she could be sure of was that that man would soon come for her. She looked around the room. The only feasible places she could choose were right here. One was in the closet, the other under the bed. Internally she cursed, but bit her lip.
Ready or not, here I come.
The man's voice thundered through the house, and Olivia hobbled across the room as silently as she could, jumped into the closet, and quickly, then quietly closed the door behind her. Darkness surrounded her as she let herself sit down to give her legs a break. It was a bad hiding place, she knew, but the only one that could work at all. What was going on here? She put her phone on her knees and looked at the screen. The man was now walking around her parents' living room, peeking into every corner while the chat got rowdy. Just get her. Stop playing around. She could see the man's wide smirk every time his face turned sideways, as the camera seemed to float behind him, constantly keeping him in frame. He was playing with her, she knew. But right now, she couldn't do much against it. While balancing the phone on her knees, Olivia started massaging her legs to get blood back into them. They were still shivering and shaking, and as she tried to tense her calves, she could feel a sudden cramp building. Her body was betraying her. Olivia groaned in her mind, then looked back at the phone, only to find that creepy man already walking toward the front of the house again. The chat was egging him on, telling him to look upstairs next. They were braying for her blood. How could such a stream exist? And who was watching it? She could see the man reaching the stairs already, turning to the camera with this wicked smile on his face before he raised his cane and brought the tip down on the first step. Olivia heard it coming from downstairs, and she felt it deep in her bones as well. That one tap made her legs tremble as badly as before. She groaned, then quickly put her hands over her mouth to muffle the noise. On the screen, the man seemed ecstatic. He took a step up the stairs, brought down the cane again, and the noise rushed through her like an electric jolt. She could see his lips moving on the screen, but didn't hear the words. He was whispering something to his fans, and somehow it seemed like he knew that she couldn't hear him. The chat was going wild again. Words like, "kill her," were getting posted more and more often. Olivia felt sick in her hiding space. She needed to escape, some part of her begged. But how? Should she jump out of the window? No. The guy on the screen tapped another step on the stairs, and she could hear it even more clearly now. He was coming closer and closer. If she left her hiding spot now, he would catch her before she could even get the window open. No. She had to wait until the man was on another floor again. And for that, she needed to avoid getting caught by him right now. Olivia looked up at the clothing hanging in her closet. Sitting down here on the floor wouldn't be good enough. The moment he opened the closet, he would find her. She heard the cane tapping against the stairs again. Loud this time. It felt like hot and cold needles piercing her all over. Olivia knew that she needed to do something before he got here. She stood up slowly, and to her surprise, found her legs already working a bit better. He was coming, this voice in her mind howled. This strange man would be here in a matter of seconds. Olivia extended her arms upwards, touched the rack her blouses and jackets were hanging from, and put a bit of weight on it. It didn't groan or bend. This might work, she told herself, then heard the loudest thud yet as the cane hit the wooden boards of the floor her room was on. Olivia felt like she might faint. Footsteps could be heard. The man was coming in her direction with slow, measured steps. She glanced at the phone. He was walking leisurely, looking at the other rooms, but heading straight for her. Olivia could feel the tension in the air. There was no doubt in her mind that he already knew where she was. He seemed to be able to see her and hear her through her phone just fine. However he did that. Then could she even escape him? Olivia shook her head. She had to try at least. Putting the phone into her pocket, she touched the top of the closet with her other hand. There was a slight gap in the wood, enough to put her fingers in. She would need to hold herself up when the time came. Her head turned and she looked out between the small gaps of the closet door just as the cane hit the floor again and sent another shockwave through her body. A figure appeared, dressed in a dark suit, and Olivia almost let out a scream. Up until now, part of her had clung to the hope that this wasn't real, that it all was some kind of elaborate prank. But he was really coming for her. Olivia strengthened her grip on the bar and a small gap in the wood, then took a deep breath. She could see him step into her room. He was looking around, always sporting this almost manic grin.
Wherever could she be?
He said in a mocking tone as his feet carried him through the room. Olivia felt her heartbeat in her head. He really was coming for her, in an almost straight line. She held her breath, pulled herself up until her feet were no longer visible beneath the clothing hanging from the rack, and watched in horror as the man suddenly took a quick step toward the closet and pulled its door open. A cold chill hit her, together with the stench of aftershave. The man had stopped and was staring at the open closet before he let his fingers brush over her outfits, so close to her face. Olivia thought her heart might burst. It was beating so loudly, he must know she was in there. But the man only moved his arm back and forth before stopping all of a sudden. A low, evil chuckle reached her ears, and the hand plunged in between two jackets and touched the bar just a hair's breadth from her nose. It was deathly pale. She could see blue veins beneath the almost translucent-looking skin. What was he doing? Olivia asked herself that question, but before she could even think of anything, the hand around the bar suddenly tensed. She heard the metal groaning, then felt herself falling as the rack collapsed and pulled her down with it. Her scream escaped her, but was cut short as the man's hand closed around her neck and pulled her up from the heap of clothing on the closet floor. Olivia struggled. She kicked the man, but he didn't even flinch. It felt like trying to fight a statue. This sudden thought hit her. The man was grinning from ear to ear.
Got you!
He hissed, then turned his head around and looked at the empty air of the room.
This one is no good. I think we need to motivate her.
Olivia felt herself getting dizzy. The man held her up by the throat and carried her through the room as if she were a ragdoll. He walked, still with her, out of the room, then suddenly turned his head and attention back to her, and brought his face so close to hers she could smell his sour breath.
You better shape up now. The last one broke after the second game, and I don't want to find a third one in one night.
Olivia was in complete panic. Blood was dripping from the fingers on her left hand, and she smeared it on the man's suit. That earned her a deep and angry growl. He carried her out of her room and to the stairs. Olivia felt her lungs burning, her vision getting dark.
If I catch you this easily again, there will be hell to pay.
He warned, then suddenly let go. She tried to scream, but her voice didn't come out. Her back hit the stairs. She felt two of her ribs breaking, then tumbled down the steps, still fighting for air. The world whirled around her. She was hit in the shoulder, back, head, knees and elbows before she finally reached the floor, rolled over and let out a groan.
You have 2 minutes, then I'll come for you again. Touch the door, and you're dead.
The voice echoed around her head. Olivia could hardly think straight, but her body already started moving. She got to her knees, collapsed again, then pulled herself up against the wall. Tears were running down her cheek. Blood was trickling from the corner of her mouth. She was unsteady. Her whole body hurt, but this panic drove her on. He wasn't joking. That much was clear. In 2 minutes, he would come after her, and if he found her again... Olivia groaned, looked up, and could see the man walk away from the top of the stairs, back toward her room. This was crazy. She sobbed, then pushed herself off the wall and started walking through the house. Where could she hide? Was there a place here he wouldn't find immediately? Maybe the basement? No, he had found her far too easily before. There was no place to hide from him as long as he could track her. The seconds were ticking down, and Olivia felt each and every one of them. He would know if she tried to leave. That meant he always knew where she was. That game was nothing more than a sham, meant to give her hope or entertain the sickos watching. Olivia groaned as the broken ribs in her side shifted as she turned her body. He would kill her. She would die here. Olivia stumbled into the living room, then looked around. There was nothing here to hide her. No, she couldn't think like that. This part of her howled in her mind. Hiding was impossible. Doing anything was difficult while the strange man could see her every move. Her eyes fell on the window, and through it she could see her neighbor's house. The lights were still on. This was her only chance. Olivia pulled the phone from her pocket. She could see the man staring into the camera, smiling, while above him a timer ticked down. 56 seconds left. She threw the phone across the room, and in that last moment, Olivia thought she could see the man's smile vanishing. Before it hit the floor, she was already by the mantel, grabbed hold of one of her dad's trophies and raced with it through the room. Her neighbors were still awake. She could see a figure behind one of the curtains. Olivia heard and felt the cane upstairs hitting the floor at the same time as her phone, but now she didn't care. She threw the trophy at the window and heard and saw the glass break, the shards flying everywhere in a glittering shower. Footsteps thundered toward the stairs. She jumped forward, grabbed hold of the frame, took a deep breath, and got ready to shout. The cane hit the floor right next to her. A hand, cold and lifeless like stone, grabbed her by the neck. Her cry for help turned into a pained scream as she was lifted off the floor.
What did you just do?
This cold voice hissed right into her ear. Olivia struggled in his grasp. Her hands were trying to pry his fingers away, but they still felt like they were made out of stone. She kicked and let out another scream. The vertebrae in her neck started to scrape over each other. Pain was shooting up and down her spine and set the broken ribs in her side aflame. She was howling while the man behind her started to toss her around.
You will stop this. You belong to me now.
The anger in his voice made her struggle even harder. Her vision was getting dark and fuzzy. Bright flashes appeared every time the man's hand whipped her around again. She thought she could hear laughter from somewhere. People were howling in delight. Suddenly, the movement of the hand stopped as the man froze. Bright light was hitting her eyes, and in her hazy vision, Olivia could see a figure coming toward her. She tried to scream for help, but the fingers dug into the side of her neck so hard she thought she would faint.
Damn it!
The man behind her growled. Olivia felt the fingers leaving her neck before she tumbled to the floor. Another voice was shouting. A normal one. She couldn't make out what it was saying. All she could hear was the man's creepy voice.
Looks like we need to interrupt the broadcast, guys, but don't worry. We'll be back to finish this soon, Olivia.
The dress shoe next to her face seemed to tremble, then dissolve into a cloud of smoke and shadows. Olivia was screaming and groaning, her whole body shaking. Somewhere far behind, she could hear her phone hissing and bursting into flames. Olivia spat out blood and tried to push herself off the floor. Her neighbor was coming. She could hear him running toward the front door. It didn't matter. Part of her wound. That strange man had promised her he would be back soon, and then he wouldn't let her escape again. The rushing of blood in her ears almost sounded like cheers and laughter. She still didn't know how this creep had found her, but there was no doubt in her mind that he would come back to finish the job.